the Inspector General of Police will have made arrangements to ensure that entrance to cities that are known to be violent are provided with some device, some equipment that can detect arms and ammunition. The idea of depending on manual checking of trailers or distance detects arms is gone. You can put certain things inside bag of rice. Manual distance will not check, but you have equipment, though expensive, that can be put during the election in some strategic areas whereby if arms are going to be moved, they will be discovered. When these arms are not there, well, definitely there won't be way to disrupt election. And any person who is caught, no matter how he plays, when he's prosecuted, then definitely the other people will know that the law is efficacious, and subsequently they will deter from doing anything that will cause the violence and disrupt the peaceful conduct of the 2019 elections.
All right, thank you very much. Let's bring in the former Inspector General of Police. Again, I would like you to respond to the question that I posed to the AIG. And this time, I will rephrase it to say, look, there is a view that the almost acute insecurity of tenure of law enforcement agents is often manipulated by those in those who have political influence, to get them to look the other way when offenses are being committed and when there are therefore breaches of the security in the course of electioneering. Your comment, please.
Well, let me also say a few words with regards to the issue of allowing violators of election offenses and the issue vis-a-vis their prosecution. Let it be clear that the Electoral Act provides specifically that it is the electoral officer who will identify the commission of an offense at the polling unit and therefore direct the police or the security agent to effect an arrest. So it is not even the same way we used to know where the policeman effects arrest once an offense is committed. Here, he doesn't decide alone. The electoral officer will have to be involved. So I think we have to look at that so that we know how to share the blame. Similarly, electoral offenders, still by the provision of the Electoral Act, are only meant to be prosecuted by the INEC lawyers or INEC personnel, though they can delegate it to the police. So here too, we have to share the responsibility of perhaps the non-prosecution, if there is any at all. By the way, you should also know that offenders and the activities of the court don't get done one day. There is investigation to be carried out. It takes time to prosecute. We all know it is God that has the ultimate power of firing and firing. And it can happen to anybody. But coming back to it, I think it is left to the officer affected, to use his discretion and perhaps weigh which is more important to him. Is it the survival of the nation that is more important to him, or protecting his own job? Is it the security of the society as a whole that matters most to him, or his own personal security? That's with regards to securing his job now. But I think what we should all note, and of course, it includes public officers in every other service of government or service of the people. We should all know that sometimes it is what you play with that can consume you. I think if you are only concerned about your job, you should know that apart from you who may feel scared, you should also know that you have your own parents, perhaps your own grandchildren or children somewhere away from you. And if for any reason this violence spreads, it can consume them as well. But I must say it has been happening for a very long time. And that's why I made reference of 2011 elections. In 2011 elections, I was Commissioner of Police in Rivers. And I was deployed to Lagos. And it was there in Lagos where I could rightfully say that I saw an Inspector General of Police who didn't care what the government in power or his appointees will say, and went on to accept that my discretion was what mattered most. I remember a candidate son of a serving ambassador in Nigeria, serving in one of the African countries, realized that he had lost the election. And he went on to a collation center and made attempts to disrupt it. Is on his neck is peace for the majority of the people who are law-abiding, which is most important, than peace for a few who just believe that because they have power, they can manipulate it and cause chaos.
Thank you very much, former IGP Suleiman. You're still watching Good Morning Nigeria. We'll take a short break now. When we return, you get to hear the views of our online viewers, and then we'll continue with the conversation. Stay with us.
Oh boy, climb this thing now. Not be only to connect lights.
Come do on yourself now.
Now wow. Oh boy, come down now. Oga Kasali electrician who will look for this.
Oh.
Oga Kasali, come help us fix this wire now.
Sorry, I no longer carry out illegal connection. It puts the lives of people at risk and can cause fire outbreak and disrupt power supply. I will never be part of anything that has to do with this any longer, because change begins with me.
Oh boy, what do you talk makes sense? Oh boy, we could carry this ladder from over.
This message is brought to you by the National Orientation Agency in conjunction with the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Nigerians. Suicide bombers are not spirits. They are not ghosts. They are human beings like you and me. They live amongst us. They are your neighbors. They are your friends today, but terrorists tomorrow. So you must know your neighbor now. Security begins with you and me. Know your neighbor. Be vigilant. Be security conscious. report suspicious persons, objects and movements to the police and other security agencies. The security of our nation is a duty for you and me.
If you see something, say something. Nigeria, unite against terrorism. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
All right, welcome back, and it's still Good Morning Nigeria, live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We have a number of tweets, as my colleague Joy indicated before we went on that short break. Let's run through the tweets now. Law Alpha tweets: the security agencies have to be properly equipped and thoroughly oriented by governments to live above board and eschew favoritism. Security of life first, and security of the ballot boxes from mischievous politicians must remain the agenda of the security agencies. However, militarization of the process will be anti-democratic, and the governing party will be accused of manipulating the exercise.
The next one is coming from Abraham Chejile, and he tweets: to avoid post-election violence or violence during election, they have to deploy security personnel in uniform and in mufti so that criminals can be checkmated.
Festus Akimboyewa: the security agencies must be well prepared and work together and see to 2019 election as a national security issue, as the interest in election goes beyond Nigeria. Now, government at all levels must be involved in the management of election security, and money budgeted for security must be promptly released.
Muhammadu Sanusi tweets: in 2019 elections, every vote should be counted and not ban on the use of smartphones in election premises.
Emmanuel Ido now says some Nigerian voters have no faith in the ability of the security agencies. They consider them being partisan. Maybe I'm one of those, but they can get our trust again.
And the next one is coming from Raji Afiz Abidemi. He tweets: the best election security is to be honest to each other. Politicians should be sincere with the electorate, and INEC should conduct free and fair elections. From there, we will get it right. God bless Nigeria.
Lawani Agbohagwe tweets, says Nigerian security agencies, most especially the police, should be given the proper orientation and nurture the culture of peace towards ensuring peaceful polls.
And Ortega has this to say: the security agencies should remain neutral during election in 2019. Nigeria and the rest of the world needs peaceful, fair and credible election.
Mike Ayakwa tweets, what the Nigerian electorate want is free and fair elections. Let the votes count. Our politicians must play by the rules. That's the greatest election security management. Security and INEC officials must also be fair to all. There will always be winners and losers.
And this one is coming from Mutana Farouk. Mutana Farouk says the security architecture in Nigeria has all the possibilities and the capabilities to manage the electoral processes in Nigeria, Africa and beyond. But some politicians are on the other side of the divide to truncate the process for the political malversation. Election is not a war.
Ortega tweets, it says the priority should be that the lives of Nigerians are not worth any politician's ambition. Free, fair and credible elections must be pursued.
Aminu Uba Al-Hassan tweets, police and other security agencies are critical ingredients for a free, fair election worldwide. Kudos to our uniformed men. Your good effort during the 2015 general elections is written in gold.
Sani Michael Makoji, it says we have refused to move with the trend of ICT across the globe. And this is sad. The militarization of polling units during the election is unnecessary in the 21st century. If we are serious as a nation, we can deploy ICT to use our BVN to vote.
And Bulama Talba tweets, it is high time Nigeria enact a law that will disqualify candidates using political thugs during elections.
Mike Ayakwa tweets, now about 30,000 policemen were deployed to the last Ekiti governorship election. Almost the same in Osun. Now, the question is, should we have the number in all the states now that the elections will take place same day? The answer is definitely no. Elections should not be a do-or-die affair.
And this one is coming from Sani Michael Omakuju. With the introduction of card reader by INEC, which is commendable, one feels that by now card readers should have been linked with the national ID alongside our BVN to save billions of naira organizing security and also take off the stress from the electorate.
Mutana Farouk tweets, now the security agencies would not intentionally intrude into the electoral process if they are not coerced to do so by the politicians. Politicians should play politics by the rules. The major cause of electoral malpractices in Nigeria can be traced to the attitude of the politicians. That's Mutana Farouk. Thank you very much for the tweets that we have received. Let's return to our guest, Professor Etanibi Alemika. Can you sketch, for instance, a potential game changer that will lead to enhanced security management in the course of our election cycles?
Yes, I think we need to now begin to bring together what we need to have a good election, and part of it managing security. And some of the tweeters have actually pointed out very critical things. For example, we have this kind of level of mobilization for security because we're still using manual systems in most of the instances. In other countries, I mean, where they have been lucky to be more technologically advanced and have the infrastructure, voting is like going to any of the ATMs to collect your money. You don't have to have a stress. You take, during your 1 hour break, you go and vote your election. There are probably 2 or 3 people, just like your ATM here, and you leave. I think increasingly we must move in that direction. Unfortunately, when we talk about ICT in Nigeria, the driver of ICT is still a problem, which is energy. Energy is the driver of ICT. If you don't have electricity, your other platform of ICT will fail. So I think for the long run, we have to work more on our energy to be able to use those platforms. But that's one way we can deal with it. So what are we using for now is the reader. I think INEC should make sure that the readers are really good, that the level of failure is not much, because these are the things that agitate people that can lead to instantaneous violence. You know, I said there are pre-planned violence, there are also instantaneous ones. And a lot of election day, the election day violence, a majority of it are actually instantaneous. Frustration arising from problem of managing the election. So we need more ICT. We need more professionalism, as the IG, I think, from the side of the police. What we need is professionalism. And it is not just to say impartial. There is this notion that, you know, the IG and the rest of it, that local police are actually taking instruction from IG. I had had the opportunity of participating in election, monitoring, you know, a process leading to election in 1999. Then I was a director of National Orientation Agency. And I used to tell INEC chairman, I said, you are not the most powerful person in INEC. The most powerful person in INEC is the local electoral officer who is in charge of local government. And that person is not even concerned about the political party in power or not in power. He's, you know, concerned about his pocket. So everybody, police, the security agencies in Nigeria are available to anyone who offer what is interesting. Let's not assume it's just the party in power. So what I think the security agencies need to do is also ICT. Intelligence is important. Intelligence will help you to understand what is going to happen, the risk analysis, you know, how to target those ones, and minimize the election day risk. Because if you are able to destroy before election, you minimize the election day risk. So we need more intelligence, intelligence-led policing. Another thing we would need to do, luckily now we have a fairly good platform for coordinating security agencies, which is chaired by the INEC chairman and the NSA. I think they co-chair it. I think that platform is very good. So in terms of rivalry among the security agencies, now there's a way to manage it, and that I think is a good thing to follow. But I think the most important actor is the citizen in election security management. Is the citizen. I'm not going to be used, because if I'm used to engender violence and the wrong person gets into power, I'm undermining my own interests, undermining my children's interests, and my children's interests.
I don't know. Prof. Alemika, thank you very much. I mean, that's a perfect way to learn. But earlier, you talked about the conception of election as war because of the cartelism that is also involved. And if you are recruiting all kinds of foot soldiers to prosecute this illegal war, how does this message get to that potential illegal foot soldier to say, that, listen, this is not worth it, because at the end of the day, we're all suffering the collateral or direct consequences of disruption of the electoral process?
Yeah, that's why I think the media has a lot of role to play to enlighten. There are agencies, again, when it comes to this, there are many perceptions. I think the organization like National Orientation Agency need to wake up, and I think individually as parents, as uncles and brothers and siblings, we need to tell ourselves the message. Most of the problem we complain about, government, if we relate it to the way we behave on a daily basis, we will not be talking about government, we'll be talking about changing our own attitude. So I think that's why religious leaders also have responsibilities, the traditional rulers have responsibilities. But like I said, if we're going to rely on these high-level Nigerians, many of them are highly compromised. So enlightenment is important. There are civil society organizations that they just have to continue at the level of empowering citizens. Otherwise, I do not see preaching to politicians changing the interest. Their interest is, I think, is overwhelming. That I don't think preaching to them, it is to undermine their interest. I think that's the way to go.
All right, thank you very much, Professor Alemeka. Let me return back to retired IGP Suleiman. I want us to look at the issue of accusation and counter-accusation against security officers in terms of favoring political parties and candidates. We've had that alleged favoritism. How valid are these allegations, especially if you look at your experience in the last election?
Thank you very much. I think it's like we're going back to where we started. It is very clear, and I think Prof, who is one of the patrons of Clean Foundation, which is a leading NGO with regards to not only monitoring elections, but particularly in training, preparing security personnel with regards to living up to their responsibilities, of course, daily responsibilities, and that includes elections as well. He will agree with me on the fact that almost all the previous reports, majority of the observers, both foreign and home-based observers, have been blaming security agencies for supporting the party in power. That is on the records. Perhaps it has been there even before independence, I would say. We all know that it is on record that colonial masters had used the police, in achieving their goals with regards to colonizing us. And that's a trait that continued perhaps into the present era. And just like we said, the fact that it is the government, the party that has the government in power that appoints the Inspector General of Police, who of course chooses who will assist him in the various states and all that, is a clear indication that it is possible that connivance could take place. But I still want to say that the issue of the appointment of any Inspector General of Police ought to go. Statutorily, it is provided. It is not meant for you to serve only the interest of the party in power.
But this is not even about the incumbent alone. It is said that politicians, because they have money, they control some security officers.
Well, let me say that I still agree with what Professor Alemeka said, that politicians, yes, they can buy INEC officials, they can buy security officials. But we must also accept that there has been a resolve which clearly manifested in the 2015 elections. A resolve by both INEC officials and by security personnel. You should recall that there were INEC officials who said, so person had given me money, and they refused to go along with them. And you will also see that, yes, some were even arrested later on. But even those arrested did not succeed in changing what the voters decided. So I think we should begin to look at how we move on from that foundation. A foundation where INEC officials, either because now they cannot manipulate the system, have stopped it. Security officials, because of the sensitization, have now made a resolve not to connive with politicians, since that's how you want me to put it, any politician at all, in changing the numbers. And I must say, in 2015, that was why, even though funds were allocated very late, I made sure that every police officer was paid, and was paid more than what they were ever paid before for the conduct of an election. And that got into their accounts before the day of the election. So that, I believe, also contributed in making their independent decisions. I must tell you, a reference that was made by the previous government that the police had become indisciplined made reference to nothing other than the fact that an inspector of police was giving instruction by a serving minister at a polling unit which he refused to obey in compliance to our directive. That was what was called the police becoming indisciplined.
All right, former Inspector General of Police, Suleiman Abbas, thank you very much. Well, of course, the point should also be underscored from what we have seen in the conduct of elections, particularly since the Fourth Republic. INEC, that's to say the election management body, has gradually been shutting down the various avenues for the manipulation of the electoral process. So, to the extent that the opportunities for finagling with the outcome of the elections get to be narrowed, politicians, of course, are getting into dire straits and perhaps also become more desperate. But still on election security management, but regardless, again, taking from Professor Alemika the mentality of a cartel, they will get desperate and vicious. My question now goes to Bala Hassan, retired Assistant Inspector General of Police. We'd like you to speak to interagency collaboration in election security management. Oftentimes it is said that they find tension between the lead agency, the police, and several others that are involved. And that's one. The second leg of it is fine. In terms of interagency collaboration, it is not on election day that you get to sit down with the others and then work out your strategies. Now, there are officers, who would have been involved in the lead up to the election. And then suddenly, just before voting, you find a rush of transfers of officers. How do these transfers impact on the efficient implementation of a work plan to ensure that there's interagency collaboration and effectiveness of the security management?
Very much. The interagency cooperation between officers is not just an ad hoc situation. It's something that takes place long before the conduct of the elections, whereby a meeting is held, mostly in INEC office. The Commissioner of Police, other stakeholders will come, they meet periodically to understand themselves, to have a synergy towards the conduct of the election. This has been on, and it pays creditably because if you look at the issue of foreigners having our voters card, where a policeman may not discover who is a Nigerian, who is a Chadian, an immigration officer in the fold of that security committee will be able to know that this person is not a Nigerian, and therefore he is not authorized, he is not entitled to vote. So this has been happening, it has been working well for long. And not only that, we have what we call control centers in the various police commands. control centers, whereby during the election, the military will bring their men, some police also will bring their men, and some of the security agencies. From there, they monitor what is happening, and they are able to react in case there are situations that happen that are detrimental to the conduct of the election. Well, to the second arm of your question, constant transfer during election, where this thing has been happening for the past 8-9 years, and the purpose of that to ensure impartiality, because if you are a commissioner of police in a particular state, you stay with the governor, sometimes you even eat lunch with him and all that. So by the time election comes, the expectation of the governor is that you may be able to play one role for the conduct of the election. But by the time they move you from Rivers to Lagos, or like in my own case, I was in Abuja, they took me to Niger. So the governor in Niger then, in Abuja, then will see a different person brought from another state. So that is the purpose of that is to ensure impartiality during the election. It has paid well, and I'm not sure that there are any group of people who have discredited that type of system whereby during election you change commissioners. And in fact, some people go to the extent of changing even the area commanders and the DPO. So, but that by and large, the purpose of these changes is to ensure impartiality during the conduct of the elections. As the retired IG has said, once the steps he took when he was the IG by paying men directly their money into their accounts is done, there is no way you can influence, because the influence starts from the voting station, not even from the CP. So if you carry 10,000 naira to give a police inspector, already they have paid him 150,000 from the headquarters, he will look at you and he will not obey your order. And there are no many police officers or military officers or civil servants conducting this election. They are remain impartial because of how they are being synthesized long before the election. And as Professor Elimeka said, that maybe politicians cannot be changed, they can be changed. If a whole president can say that he's becoming back president again is not worth the blood of Nigeria, and other people should say the same thing. Once you say that, those people who are following you will know that this is not a do-or-die affair, and they will conduct themselves peacefully so that the election can be better for all Nigerians.
All right, thank you very much, retired Assistant Inspector General of Police, Bala Hassan. We thank you very much for joining us on this conversation this morning. We'll also like to thank the retired Inspector General of Police, Abba Suleiman, who joined us for this conversation this morning. Thank you very much for your contributions.
My pleasure to be here.
And I'll also like to thank Professor Etanibi Alemika, Professor of Criminology and member, Presidential Committee on Anti-Corruption. Thank you very much for your insightful contribution.
Good morning.
And that's it for our conversation. Sports Eats next.